I remember that moment vividly, sitting beside Maya while she worked on her homework, when suddenly she held that wedding invitation in her hands, her eyes lighting up with a sparkle that was impossible to miss. It was a simple card, yet to her, it meant so much more than just a party. It was the chance to feel part of a family she had always longed for, the kind of family that always seemed just out of reach. Her happiness was so genuine, so pure that I found myself smiling along, believing this was an important step toward something good finally unfolding between us. How often do we fail to recognize the value of small gestures, only to realize later how crucial they truly were? And there I was, not knowing that this joy would be the starting point for a series of challenges I had yet to face. The invitation seemed harmless, a simple piece of paper with a date and location, but it carried the heavy weight of unspoken expectations, repressed desires, and above all, Maya's hope of finally being accepted. It's strange how life can use seemingly small things to trigger great disruptions. I tried to picture what the wedding day would be like, imagining a warm environment where everyone would embrace us, where there would be no judgment or resentment. But that sense of calm began to fade as the details emerged, and I realized that this invitation, far from being a symbol of unity, could very well become the spark that ignited a deep crisis within our family. Have you ever felt that something that seemed so promising was on the verge of turning into a storm? That was exactly how it all began. As the wedding day drew near, I understood I wasn't just dealing with a celebration. I was facing a tangled web of emotions and relationships that demanded far more from me than I had anticipated. Maya dreamed of being part of that family and I wanted to protect her, but reality made it clear there was no easy middle ground. The invitation turned out to be, in truth, an invitation to a silent confrontation, a test of boundaries between what is acceptable and what is not, between true love and empty appearances. And in that moment, I knew I would have to find the strength and wisdom to navigate this turbulence, because nothing would ever be the same. It made me reflect on how small decisions can change our lives in ways we never expect. Before we continue, leave a comment telling me where you're watching from and subscribe to the Vintage Vengeance Stories channel. We're building a community of amazing women who know that our best chapters can happen at any age. Now back to the story. When Jennifer made it clear that Maya would not be invited to the wedding, something inside me broke in silence. That sentence, "Maya is not really family," echoed like an unexpected, cruel blow, wounding not just me but especially my daughter, who had always longed for acceptance and love. It's astonishing how words hold the power to diminish someone, to exclude them from a place they've worked so hard to belong. I couldn't help but think of how often we hear similar stories, where true love is tested by prejudice and invisible barriers that only harm. But I knew that behind Jennifer's rejection lay something deeper than a matter of blood. It was a struggle for identity, belonging, and recognition that went far beyond appearances. Rejecting someone you love, especially a daughter you have chosen to love and raise as your own, is a pain beyond measure. I could see Maya fragile, as if this wasn't just a denied invitation, but a painful message that she wasn't welcome where her heart longed to be. I've seen many adoptive parents face this same pain, and I know the fight to have our children recognized is neither easy nor quick. That's why it's essential that, even in such moments, we remain steadfast and offer them not only unconditional love but also concrete examples of strength and resilience. Showing Maya that she is family no matter what anyone says became our mission at that time, and it changed everything for us. This rejection made me reflect deeply on the true meaning of family. It's not just a bond of blood that connects us, but a daily commitment of love, care, and protection. So often society insists on making us believe that biological ties define who we are, but life has taught me that love built and nurtured is far stronger and more real. So I decided Maya would never again feel the shadow of that exclusion over her, and that together we would show that family is made up of those who are present, who choose to love, who fight alongside us. Little did I know that this decision would only be the beginning of a much bigger battle, and that I would need to find my own voice to defend what is right and true. When Jennifer declared that Maya wasn't part of the real circle of the family because she didn't share the same blood, it was as if all our battles and victories had been erased by a single prejudice. I found myself having to defend every step my adopted daughter took, every victory, every display of character and intelligence that revealed who she truly was. It was a moment of profound pain because, in that instant, it became clear that to Jennifer, family was reduced to a cold, excluding criterion: blood. And it made me wonder, How often do we allow outdated concepts to keep us from seeing the true worth of those we choose to love and protect? Such a narrow vision not only destroys relationships but also prevents genuine love from growing. Defending the value of a chosen family is a battle that goes far beyond words. It takes courage to face others' judgment and determination to stay true to what we believe, especially when it means protecting those we love. I've learned that there's no point in trying to convince those who aren't willing to listen. But under no circumstances can we give up on showing that love transcends biological ties. One practical step for those who go through this is to create safe spaces where adopted children feel valued and respected. Support groups, activities where they can shine, and communities that celebrate family diversity. That's how we strengthen our emotional safety net and help dismantle these barriers. The hardest part, however, wasn't just the rejection, but the coldness with which Jennifer handled the situation, as if Maya's history and qualities carried no weight at all. That experience taught me that we must be mentors and leaders within our own families, leading by example in what real love, empathy, and respect look like. After all, if we want the world to change, we must start by changing within our own homes. And in that climate of conflict and learning, I began to understand that protecting my daughter was only the start of a path where I would have to take a firmer stand than I ever imagined, because something much greater was at stake. I will never forget the look on Maya's face in that moment, when she heard those harsh words and tried to hide her sadness behind a fragile smile. But the pain was there, crystal clear in her eyes, that silent blend of hurt and helplessness only those who have felt excluded truly understand. It is a daily struggle for anyone who is seen as different, for those who long more than anything for a place of belonging and genuine love within their own family. I know how much Maya tried to win the affection of her biological sister, wanting to be seen as more than just the adopted daughter. And it is exactly this struggle that for many remains invisible, yet leaves deep marks on the heart. The rejection Maya faced wasn't just about words or the absence of an invitation. It was an emotional wound that made her question her worth and her place in the world. As her mother, I felt every piece of that pain as if it were my own, and at the same time, I realized I needed to be her fortress, the safe harbor reminding her every day of how loved she was, no matter what others thought. In such moments, I've learned that being present, listening, and validating the feelings of someone facing exclusion is just as important as fighting the injustice itself. For those living this reality, one path is to invest in honest conversations and activities that build self-esteem, such as family therapy, discussion circles, or even creative projects that restore the sense of belonging. That moment also opened my eyes to a painful truth. Being accepted when you are different is not just a personal challenge. It is a social issue that still needs to be confronted in many homes and communities. Often, the real challenge lies in dismantling prejudice and making space for new forms of family, more inclusive and more welcoming. I knew that pain couldn't remain hidden. It needed to be faced with courage and love. Only then could I transform that rejection into an opportunity to strengthen our bonds and prepare the ground for what was to come. And so, slowly we learned to stand strong together, while the next chapter of our story unfolded before us. When the time came to make a decision, I knew I was facing one of the greatest tests of my integrity as a mother and as a woman. For many, the idea of going to the wedding might have seemed simple, but for me it meant far more than just attending a party. It represented the recognition and validation of my daughter Maya. The moment I realized she would not be welcome, I understood that my presence there would lose all meaning. It was a painful choice, of course. Skipping a family event is not something you do lightly. But in that instant, it became clear that protecting Maya's dignity and preserving the love we had always shared mattered far more than any social convention. Choosing not to attend the wedding was, for me, an act of courage and a declaration of values. I understood that there are moments when we must place what truly matters above outside expectations, even if it brings discomfort or even conflict. By taking this stand, I sent a clear message. I will not accept my daughter being treated as less than she deserves, and I will not allow that to happen in the name of so-called family harmony. For anyone facing similar situations, I would say, reflect deeply on what is truly worth your presence. Sometimes, stepping away from toxic events and people is the first step toward building a healthier and more authentic life. This decision also helped me realize that true family is not defined by blood ties, but by loyalty, respect, and unconditional love. The family we choose to protect, and who stand by us especially in hard times, is the one that truly matters. And that choice is not only a boundary we set for others, but also an act of care for ourselves and those we love. Thinking about that, I realized that my fight for Maya's dignity would not end there. More challenges lay ahead, and to face them I would need to stand even firmer and stay deeply rooted in the values that define who we are. When my sister Carol and my nephew Jason started pressuring me to attend the wedding, saying it was Jennifer's day, and that Maya needed to learn how to handle exclusion, I felt as if I were standing in the middle of an emotional storm. They tried to convince me to accept the situation as inevitable, almost as if it were some kind of lesson my daughter needed to learn. But to me it was nothing more than an attempt to minimize the pain being imposed on her. A pain no one should have to bear for being different, or for not fitting into someone else's definition of family. At that moment, it became clear to me that real love should never be conditional, nor should it build barriers that wound the ones we love. What struck me most about their pressure was how naturally they presented exclusion as something normal, even necessary within the family. It made me reflect on how often within our own families, we accept injustice in the name of a so-called peace, or just to avoid conflict. But I discovered that resisting this is essential, because love that accepts exclusion is not love. It's conformity. I had to take a firm stand, explaining that what was at stake was far greater than a wedding invitation. It was about dignity, respect, and the recognition of Maya's worth as a person and as my daughter. That resistance, though difficult, was an act of courage that opened space to question patterns and awaken awareness within my own family. In the midst of this struggle, I found strength in small alliances, in gestures of support that weren't always obvious but made all the difference. I realized that even when it feels like we are standing alone, there is always someone willing to listen and understand the true importance of love without conditions. It reminded me that resistance doesn't have to be solitary. We can seek support from friends, community groups, and even online spaces where so many people share similar stories. And so, walking firmly and finding these sources of support, I began to see that our story was far from over, and that the next step would require even more determination. When Linda came to me with those harsh, prejudice-laden words, saying Maya would never be real family, and that I was destroying everything, I felt a mix of sadness and determination rise within my chest. It was a moment when I had to stand firm with all the strength I had, because this wasn't just a personal attack. It was an attempt to invalidate a bond built with love, dedication, and daily care. I knew that to her, family was a matter of blood and genetics, but I had already learned that this does not define who we are or what we feel. For me, family is built through presence, care, and unconditional love, and that is what truly matters. Facing prejudice about adoption and blood ties is not easy, and many times you find yourself trying to explain things that should be obvious, like the fact that emotional bonds can be far stronger than biological ones. I thought of real-life stories that prove this, like that of American neurosurgeon Ben Carson, who was adopted and overcame countless hardships thanks to the unconditional love of his adoptive parents. Or even the stories I know personally, where adoptive families prove every day that love can be the strongest bond between people, much stronger than DNA. That realization strengthened me and reminded me that my role was to defend that truth with wisdom and patience, even in the face of resistance. I also began to see that this confrontation, painful as it was, could be an opportunity for growth for all of us. It was an invitation to break down prejudice and open paths toward a deeper, more humane understanding of what it means to be a family. And for anyone in this same fight, my advice is, stay firm in your truth, seek knowledge, find inspiring stories, and surround yourself with emotional and intellectual support. After all, challenging prejudice takes courage, but it can transform not only our own lives but also the lives of those around us. And as this battle went on, I felt we were getting closer to something greater, something still waiting to be revealed. When Maya opened her heart to a school friend and shared the sadness she carried, something beautiful happened. She found acceptance where she least expected it. Her friend's words were like an invisible embrace, full of understanding and empathy, showing that there is a place where love isn't measured by bloodlines, but by the generosity of the heart. It was in that moment that Maya realized family goes far beyond what we imagine. It is also made up of those who accept and embrace us, even when the world seems intent on shutting us out. That experience taught me how important it is to seek these safe spaces outside of the biological family, places where our children can feel valued and loved. The invitation to a barbecue at her friend's family home meant far more than just a simple gathering. It was an open door to hope and to building new relationships rooted in respect and inclusion. It reminded me of how, in life, sometimes we have to look beyond our immediate circle to find genuine connections, the ones that strengthen us and help us grow. It's like when I, myself, needed to seek out support groups and communities that shared my values in order to feel less alone on this journey. That experience with Maya's friend also revealed to me that acceptance can appear in the most unexpected places, and that our support network doesn't have to be limited to blood or a shared last name. Life has a remarkable way of showing us that love is greater and more expansive than any prejudice. And seeing my daughter smile again, even if just in small moments, I understood that this journey of resistance and love still had many chapters to write. Chapters that would teach us even more about courage, empathy, and the true meaning of belonging. And so, our story continued, ready for the next challenge. When Derek, Jennifer's fiancé, called me with that shameless proposal, suggesting that Maya could just be a helper at the wedding instead of an actual guest, I felt a surge of both indignation and sadness flood my heart. It was as if they were trying to cast my daughter in a secondary, invisible role, someone unworthy of the same respect and recognition that everyone in a true family should receive. Refusing that offer was an act of love and protection that could never be negotiated. I knew Maya deserved to be treated with dignity as the daughter she is, not as someone lesser or excluded to satisfy someone else's whims. That so-called compromise was one of the clearest moments when I realized just how deep the resistance to our presence in that family ran. This was never just about a party. It was a power game, an exclusion masked by empty politeness. I had to be firm and unequivocal, leaving no room for doubt. Maya would never accept any role that diminished her or made her feel less than. Sometimes in life we must say no with absolute clarity to protect what matters most, even if it causes discomfort or conflict. For anyone facing something similar, remember, defending the dignity of those we love is an act of courage that strengthens bonds and builds identity. What struck me most about this whole situation was the effort they made to disguise exclusion as a compromise, or even a favor, trying to make it seem like Maya should accept a smaller place just to avoid causing trouble. But true love is not negotiable, and human dignity cannot be reduced to a supporting role. That experience made me reflect on how often we face similar situations in different areas of life, at work, in friendships, even within family, and how essential it is to stand firm, refusing to let anyone push us into the background. And so, in the face of this new affront, I felt our fight had entered a new chapter. When I spoke with Derek, I realized there was, however small, a chance to open an honest conversation about what it truly means to be a family. He argued that marriage brought certain people into the family, but that adoption was somehow different. Something that, in his view, didn't reach the same level of belonging. That was the moment I needed to put into words what I had felt in my heart for so long. Family goes far beyond blood ties. It is built day by day through commitment, love, and presence. That conversation was not easy, but it gave me the strength to reaffirm with even greater conviction that Maya is my daughter in every sense that matters. I shared with Derek examples that have always inspired me, real-life stories of adoptive families who defied prejudice and proved that love creates bonds far stronger than any gene. I reminded him that, just like adoption, marriage is also a commitment that unites different people, and that accepting someone through marriage but not through adoption is a contradiction. For anyone facing these kinds of situations, it's vital to understand that family should be a space where love is unconditional, where presence and care form the foundation of real, lasting relationships. That reflection strengthened me and showed me that, despite so much resistance, I was on the right path. More than just a conversation, that moment was an invitation for all of us to rethink our concepts and prejudices about family, especially in a world that is increasingly diverse. Reaffirming that Maya is my real daughter wasn't just a personal defense. It was a declaration of values I believe are universal: love, respect, and inclusion. With that renewed certainty, I prepared myself for the next steps in this journey, knowing that, despite the difficulties, we were building something solid and true, something no prejudice or rejection could destroy. And so, with my heart steady, we moved forward to face whatever was still ahead. Maya has reached a level of wisdom that many people take a lifetime to discover. We cannot force anyone to love us, no matter how deeply we want it with all our hearts. She understood that real love is born from choice, not obligation, and that even in the face of rejection she is still loved where it truly matters. That insight, so deep and mature for her age, is a daily reminder to me that the strength of the bond we've built surpasses any prejudice or external limitation. These moments of clarity reveal just how much she has grown, and how deeply our relationship is grounded in something far greater than the simple chance of birth. Over these 8 years, Maya has chosen me again and again, through good days and bad, and that voluntary choice is the most concrete proof of the unconditional love that binds us. It's a bond not measured by DNA but by care, by the time we spend together, by the conversations we've had, the gestures of affection, and the battles we've fought side by side. I feel honored and inspired by her maturity, not only because she accepts the hard reality we face, but because she reflects on it with wisdom and courage. For anyone living through something similar, it's essential to value these small but great victories, because they are the fuel that keeps us moving forward, even when everything feels heavy. Maya's wisdom gives me strength to keep standing, to resist, and to fight for a love that does not bow to difficulties. She teaches me that, despite the wounds that may appear, true love is a daily choice and a constant commitment. And it is this lesson that prepares us for whatever is to come, because when love is genuine, it doesn't just endure, it transforms. On the day of the wedding that caused us so much pain, we chose to be somewhere completely different, at a barbecue hosted by Maya's friend's family. We were greeted with genuine hugs and smiles that warmed our hearts. There were no judgments, no exclusions, only people who valued love and real presence. That contrast made it clear to me. What truly matters is not the party itself, but who is genuinely by your side. The sense of belonging and welcome was a relief for both Maya and me. Being surrounded by people who recognize and celebrate unconditional love is a blessing beyond price. Too often we seek acceptance in places where it will never come, forgetting that the family we choose can be even stronger and more genuine. At that simple yet deeply meaningful barbecue, I saw Maya smile, free, light, and unburdened, without the weight of the exclusion she had carried for so long. It was a moment of victory and hope, proof that true love always finds its way. That day taught me that even in our hardest moments, we can create spaces where we are loved for who we are. And as we celebrated there, we knew challenges still lay ahead, but we were stronger and more united to face them. When I visited Richard's grave, my late husband, a mix of longing and gratitude filled my heart. I remembered how he would often tell me with that simple yet profound wisdom, that love doesn't divide, it multiplies. Those words, which once seemed so easy to understand, took on new weight in light of the difficulties we were facing with Maya. Richard always believed that love is an expansive force, capable of uniting hearts and overcoming any barrier, and that certainty gave me strength to keep fighting for a rightful place for my daughter within our family. As I reflected in that silent moment, I realized that the rejection Maya was facing wasn't her fault, nor was it the result of a lack of love on our part. It was the product of prejudice, something that must be dismantled with patience and love. Maya, with her sweetness and courage, embodies that multiplication of love, one that is not limited by blood ties, but expressed in daily care, commitment, and presence. That realization brought me comfort and hope because I understood we were building something much bigger, a legacy of love that transcends difficulties and rejection. Visiting Richard's grave was more than a tribute. It was a moment to renew my faith in the power of true love. I knew that even in the face of prejudice, the seed he planted in our hearts would continue to grow and flourish in Maya's life and in the life of our chosen family. And so, strengthened by that memory, I moved forward, ready for the next chapters of this story, knowing that multiplied love always finds a way to win. I decided to create something special to tell Maya's true story with us. A visual collage bringing together photos, certificates, and memories from our 8 years together. Each image, each document, was concrete proof of the road we've traveled, the achievements she's earned, and the love we've built day by day. This collage was not just an object. It was a visual narrative that spoke louder than any words could. It was a testimony to the life Maya has lived with us, full of dedication, learning, and affection, showing that family is not defined by blood, but by commitment and love. As I put this memorial together, I thought about all the times Maya had been recognized at school, in the activities she took part in the small victories we celebrated together. Every detail mattered because it was our real story, the one often invisible to those who only look from the outside. For Jennifer, and for anyone who doubted Maya's place in our family, this collage would be a powerful reminder. Family is made of those who choose to stay, who invest their time, who love and care without conditions. It was a way to reaffirm our truth and protect our dignity in the face of rejection. This visual memorial was also a tool to strengthen Maya's self-esteem, to help her see for herself just how important and loved she is. It's a symbolic gesture, but one filled with meaning. A reinforcement of the bond that ties us together, a bond no one can erase. I sat with Maya and tried to explain one of the most important lessons I've learned about love. That true love is an unconditional, daily choice, while approval is often conditional, dependent on meeting certain expectations that we can't always control. Jennifer, in that family, offered only the kind of approval that comes with a price. Being accepted only if you follow invisible rules that exclude who you really are. That's something that can be deeply confusing because we grow up believing that approval and love are the same thing. But the reality we've lived has taught me they are completely different. To truly love someone, you should never have to change who you are just to please them. Maya understood that with a maturity that astonished me, especially for someone so young. She realized that approval can be superficial, fleeting, while true love is steady and unshakable, the kind that remains even through life's storms. I always tried to show her that in practice, through care, through words, and through the everyday gestures that speak louder than grand displays. For those who face rejection or are seeking acceptance, my advice is to focus on the kind of love that asks for nothing in return, that embraces imperfections and celebrates the essence of who we are. That's the kind of love that builds self-esteem and security, and it's in that love that we can truly lean on to move forward. This difference between love and approval made me reflect on how many people live trapped in the constant need to please others just to be accepted, forgetting that they deserve to be loved for who they truly are. Understanding this is liberating, and it has the power to transform relationships and entire lives. And as Maya and I walked this path of learning together, I knew our journey still held many challenges, but that true love would always be our greatest strength, the light guiding our steps toward what truly matters. When Jennifer called me, her voice carried a mix of worry and anxiety, because people had begun questioning her decision to exclude Maya from the wedding. I realized that suddenly she was facing a social judgment she had not anticipated, a reflection of her own choices now producing real consequences. It was interesting to see how the exclusion, which once seemed so simple to her, had now become a reason for public questioning and criticism. But I also knew it wasn't my role to fix something she herself had chosen. Every decision comes with a price, and now it was her time to take responsibility. What struck me most in this situation was realizing that so often the ones who exclude others end up isolated, not only emotionally but socially as well. The backlash Jennifer was facing served as a reminder that, in our relationships, what we do to others inevitably comes back to us in one way or another. That gave me a certain sense of comfort because it showed that social justice, even if slow, can manifest itself through the way people see and respond to unfairness. For anyone going through something similar, it's important to understand that we cannot control other people's actions. But those actions have consequences, and we must be prepared to let each person learn from their own choices. Jennifer wanted me to fix everything, to erase her mistake and restore her image in front of family and friends. But that wasn't my role nor my responsibility. I knew that Maya and I stood firmly on the side of true love and dignity, and that time would reveal who was truly in the right. This experience taught me that sometimes we have to let people face the consequences of their actions so they can reflect and maybe change. With that certainty, I moved forward, knowing that our story still had many chapters left to be written. When Jennifer asked me to help her retell the story, to make it seem as though everything was fine and Maya's exclusion hadn't been so explicit, I felt a deep, unshakable firmness rise inside me. Refusing her request was an act of preserving our dignity, because you cannot build truth on lies or half-truths. The truth is simple and clear. Maya wasn't invited because she's adopted, and that is something I will never accept or sugarcoat. Attending events where my daughter is treated as second class will never be an option for me. This decision is a non-negotiable commitment to the love and respect she deserves. Standing in truth in the face of rejection is a challenge that demands courage, especially when the pressure to fix someone else's image is strong. I've learned that trying to hide reality only weakens those who live it, and that our story deserves to be told with honesty so others can be inspired by our resilience and our fight. For anyone going through something similar, I encourage you to embrace the truth as a source of strength. because only then can we maintain our integrity and build genuine relationships. Dignity, after all, is the foundation of any healthy and lasting bond. This refusal also taught me that even in the face of rejection, we have the power to choose how we respond. We can play the game of appearances and remain trapped in pain, or we can stand firm with love, protecting what is essential to us. That choice shapes our story and defines what we are willing to accept. With that conviction, I keep walking forward, knowing that truth and my love for Maya are the lights that will always guide our way no matter what lies ahead. Months after the storm had passed, I received an unexpected letter from Derek's mother, Jennifer's mother-in-law, and it took me by surprise. In it, she apologized for what had happened and acknowledged Maya's worth, a gesture that touched my heart deeply. Along with her words, the letter came with a college fund for Maya, a concrete act of support that went far beyond any request or obligation. It was a moment that showed me how, sometimes, recognition and help come from the places we least expect, changing the course of difficult situations and opening space for new possibilities. That gesture made me reflect on the importance of keeping our hearts open, even when everything feels lost or when we face rejection. Derek's mother chose to reach out, showing that it's possible to acknowledge mistakes and act with empathy. And more than that, the invitation she extended for tea wasn't just a polite gesture. It was an opening to build bridges and restore relationships. This reminded me that the path of love and reconciliation can begin with small actions, often quiet ones, that leave a deep and lasting impact. And so, with my heart renewed by this unexpected support, Maya and I moved forward, ready for the next chapters of our story. Chapters still full of surprises and lessons. Maya's graduation day was one of those moments that remain forever etched in memory. She graduated with honors, the result of years of dedication, hard work, and perseverance, surrounded by people who truly love and respect her. Jennifer's absence that day didn't diminish the joy shining in Maya's eyes. If anything, it only highlighted the value of a true family, the kind that chooses to stand beside us, that celebrates our victories without judgment or exclusion. Watching my daughter receive her diploma was the confirmation that love and recognition are not dependent on blood, but on presence and genuine support. As Maya walked across the stage to receive her certificate, I felt a mix of pride and gratitude. This victory wasn't just hers, it was ours. A triumph over prejudice, over the invisible barriers that tried to hold us back. It was the moment I could say, to myself and to the world, that family is what we build with love, respect, and the commitment to show up for each other in life's most important moments. Jennifer's absence was a silence louder than any words, a reminder that not every biological relative is capable of recognizing the true value of those within their own family. That day marked the end of one chapter, but also the beginning of a new one, full of possibilities and hope. Maya proved that unconditional love and true support are the foundations that help us grow and conquer the world. Share your thoughts in the comments. I want to hear your perspective. And if this story made you think, like the video and subscribe to the channel for more real, powerful stories like this. Because in the end, every story is an opportunity to see life through new eyes.